Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, how good is Joe doing? Amazing. And before I introduce the panel that we're about to have, and we've got a cracking panel, I just want to acknowledge the minister who's just left us. It's a hard job. I had a small taste of it in New South Wales. But let me tell you, what Minister Bowen is doing at the national stage is moving the dial. It's setting Australia up for a more prosperous future, but it's ensuring that our kids will have a better future. It takes courage, it takes leadership, and in Minister Bowen, we're seeing both those qualities in spades. So even in his absence, can I get you to put your hands together to encourage him to continue doing the important work that our nation and our world needs so desperately. Now, I'm going to take a seat and call up our panel members. So if I could start with our very special guest. He's come all the way from California, and who wouldn't want to leave America at the moment to come to Australia? David Hochschild, he's the chair of the Californian Energy Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, David. Can I introduce Kate Williams, who's the CEO of 1% for the Planet. Kate, welcome, thank you. The brilliant and wonderful Megan Flynn from Pollination. No stranger to anyone in this room. Megan, ladies and gentlemen. We have all the way from the Pacific, the fabulous Mary Jack. Mary, we're so glad that you're joining us here today to share a perspective from First Nations of the Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Jack. And all the way from the Netherlands, we have Gerbrand Haverkamp. So, ladies and gentlemen, Gerbrand, thank you. Now, we're missing a seat, so I'm going to be booted. I've clearly not read my instructions right, so you take that one. Thank you very much. And it'd be remiss of me not to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we're gathered here today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and anyone in the audience today with a First Nations background. And I'd also like to say that we're here today to talk about how local action can contribute to global momentum in the climate fight. And we'll definitely explore that with our panellists here today. But I did want to mention that the war in the Middle East, of course, it wasn't anticipated by the event organisers, but it can't be ignored for the purposes of today's discussion. We know that fossil fuels give us climate insecurity, but what this war has done is remind us that fossil fuels also give us energy insecurity, and I think that's something we need to acknowledge. So today, although we're focused mostly on local action and how we can build climate momentum, which of course has the side benefit of also reducing our exposure to long-distance supply chains. So on that note, let's dive right in. And maybe, David, if we could start with you, could you help shape the discussion and tell us what climate leadership actually looks like right now and what you think Australia can do and where we currently sit?
Yeah, well, first of all, what a wonderful event. Let's give a round of applause to the organizers. This is an amazing gathering. And good things happen when we come together. Let me just start off with a very short story, which is, well, to begin with, President Trump is hitting us, I think, like a political version of COVID, okay? Coming in, massive, massive impacts across.
He managed that so well also.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get through this Trump presidency as we got through COVID, and I think it's really important for everybody to remember that he's not going to be around forever. We're going to make it through this challenging period. But when he got elected, we had a neighbor in our neighborhood who did these handwritten signs that just said resist. And so we all had these signs in our windows. And after a couple months, my wife said, you know, that word is insufficient. It actually doesn't capture the spirit of what we need. And she reminded me of this beautiful quote, which is something effective. Don't seek to dismantle old paradigms, create new paradigms that by virtue of their success make the old paradigms obsolete. Okay, so I think the operative word is create. And that's what this place and this gathering is all about, and that's what we're doing together. And we're in different countries and different continents, but we're all on the same team in terms of creating a new clean energy economy that's going to power our future. The good news is that the power to do that rests in the United States still largely with the states. So in my state of California, we're now at 70% clean energy on the grid. We have more EV charge plugs than we have gasoline nozzles. We've added 17 gigawatts of energy storage in the last 7 years, and we're hitting 100% clean energy on the California grid for 9 out of 10 days, for 9 out of 10 days last year for a period of the day, up to 6 or 7 hours a day at 100%. So we're still driving that forward, but it really begins with investing in innovation. I just wanted to lift up this remarkable group here, New Energy Nexus. We have put $88 million into them in California to help incubate the next generation of clean energy innovation that's going to drive us forward. That's the seed planting for the future that we all need and we can build together.
Amazing. Just with regard to what you're seeing in California, what lessons do you think we can take out of your experience here in Australia, particularly the role of subnational governments? I mean, we saw, in my own experience, I was a minister in a subnational government here, that we had a recalcitrant national administration, and climate momentum was continued because of the work of subnational governments. So how do we think about the politics of that and how we keep pushing forward?
Well, first of all, they say that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, right? So we have learned a lot from making mistakes, and what we've figured out primarily is that the way forward and the philosophy on which all of our clean energy policies are based now in California is the philosophy of sustained, orderly development. So we set long-term goals. We have a 2045 goal to get to 100% clean energy. We have a 2035 goal to get to 100% zero-emission vehicles. Long-term goals on offshore wind and energy storage and electric heat pumps and everything else. And we have to set those targets, create certainty, and then that unlocks vast new investment. And so just to share one story, when we really started in earnest on our clean energy aggressive policymaking about 15 years ago, we were the 10th largest economy in the world. And the critique that we got from folks who disagreed with us in the fossil fuel industry and so on, is this is going to crash your economy. This is a terrible mistake, okay? What has happened as we've now, gotten to the point where alternative energy is now the wrong word to use to describe renewables. Fossil fuel is alternative on our grid today. And what has happened is we passed Russia, we passed Brazil, we passed Italy, we passed France, we passed the UK, we just passed Japan. Now we're the 4th largest economy in the world. 6 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world today are California companies, okay? Our economy has been really healthy relative to the rest of the country in the world, and it's because of innovation. So don't believe the hype. That's the main thing. You're going to get a lot of arrows thrown at you when you start doing this stuff, but it's really important to remember, the economies that are going to succeed long term are those that build themselves on a foundation of the technologies of the future. So it's been really good for our economy. We got to get that word out more widely.
Megan, you're on the front line of creating economic opportunities, driving that innovation because of climate action. How does climate action sort of create economic growth and competitive advantage? What are you seeing on the front lines?
Well, this is, as has been said multiple times this morning already, this is one of the greatest economic opportunities for our country, and certainly really positions our country, and our company, Pollination, for competitive advantage globally. Nice little side plug there. I describe myself as an environmental capitalist, for better or worse, and that might offend people in the audience, I don't know. But for me, markets are a critical part of the solution here. And Australia has been leading the world on a number of different market fronts. And David, you and I were talking about how you look longingly at Australia and what we've been doing with water, including our water market, certainly have on carbon markets, despite the headlines. But the latest one that Australia has been leading is nature markets. Australia is the first country globally to hardwire integrity into nature markets and to legislate them. And they are being legislated now. And I think the opportunity comes, and David, you mentioned policy requiring creating certainty, and that's what unlocks capital. It's certainty and integrity. And so markets require both certainty and integrity to unlock capital at scale. And Australia is so beautifully positioned with the nature assets that we have to lead the world, genuinely lead the world, and do so on behalf of our region. We're not just a supplier to Asia, we're part of Greater Asia, and our opportunity is to do that by leading on the solutions that can be scaled across our whole region.
Amazing. And Kate, you're someone that's combined impact with, I guess, private capital to scale what can be achieved. What do you think we're doing well? What do you think we could do better? Where are the opportunities here in Australia?
Yeah, and first, just thank you all for having another U.S. citizen here. The experience of being or I'll speak for myself, my experience of being a U.S. citizen right now is that it's been pretty disconcerting and disheartening, and but I also agree, it's also creates the context where we get to get more creative. So thank you for inviting us here for this really refreshing opportunity to engage with people in a country where it's still okay to say climate out loud. So thank you for that. And we are, 1% for the Planet is a global nonprofit, and we do focus on sort of both sides of the market, as it were. So what we have created is a way for businesses generating resources in the marketplace to allocate 1% of those resources to environmental nonprofits who are doing the really critical work outside of the marketplace. They are, building constituencies, addressing impacts, investing in solutions, and that is ever more important in times when governments, can ebb and flow in the extent to which they are prioritizing those. So, mostly we operate from a place of very, very active hope and creativity, because what we see is that every day, no matter what is going on, even when in the US the biggest deregulation is taking place around these issues that we care about, businesses can make the choice to take action. And we're seeing that add up at scale. So we've been around for coming up on 25 years, and in those first 25 years, we've certified close to $1 billion in impact flowing from the business, from the capital markets to nonprofits driving impact. Last year alone, we saw 150 million of that. So as the minister was saying earlier, we're seeing that acceleration with the passage of time. And Australia, you are part of that. We have about 220 business members here who have generated 39 million Australian dollars. So all of that, sharing those statistics is a way of sharing that what we are seeing is that this model that we've created, that is a global model, is a really powerful force that creates a through line through the very significant variability that creates a way for individual actors at the business level, at the nonprofit level, at the consumer level, investing in those businesses, choosing to allocate their purchasing dollars to drive real change.
And Kate, can I just maybe get a perspective from the US? Are you seeing a pullback from the private sector when it comes to climate action, when it comes to environmental commitments? And if so, what can we do about it to ensure that, despite a denialist government in place, how do we continue the momentum?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's one we've been watching closely, like what is going to be the impact? And I would say it's been evolving, so I'll be curious to hear what your observations are. Our observations were that our existing membership, people who had businesses that had already made the commitment, have stayed very strong. We had a high retention rate. So last year, 2025, from January through June, which is when we do most of that annual renewal, it's an annual certification, we were really curious what's going to happen with our US businesses. Most of them renewed. So most of those that had already taken a stand continued to have that courage to act, continued to see the value of that. We did see a chilling effect on newer members joining, on people, taking that step to commit. There was a feeling of kind of keeping the powder dry or keeping your head down. In the last, I would say, 3 or 4 months, I feel like we've been starting to see some green shoots of companies saying, well, this is the world we're in. We can't wait around. What are we waiting for? We need to take action. So we are seeing an uptick in companies choosing to act. And one of the things that we provide is the opportunity, and I think, Danny, it was you that mentioned it earlier, we don't have to use the words climate change. We can focus on what are the solutions we're investing in, what are the outcomes that we seek. So we have 4 impact areas: just economies, resilient communities, rights to nature, and conservation and restoration. Climate action threads through all of those, but each of our companies is able to choose how they talk about that. And so we're really encouraging our businesses to think through how they can continue to stay true to their values, to invest in the things that will be key to their long-term resilience, because we are very much about, it's not a trade-off between doing good for the planet and doing good for your business. 1% for the planet represents a really fundamental investment in the long-term resilience of the whole economy and individual businesses. So really enabling businesses to step into that with different language at this time has been really important.
Gerbrand, you're from the World Benchmarking Alliance. Kate talked about impact, measuring impact. How do we know if these climate commitments that businesses are making, governments are making, are actually delivering the impact that we want to see?
It's a good question. I think I'm from Amsterdam, flew in late, heavy jet lag, but so it's great that we have lots of daylight here. With that in mind, I think what's really important, what we're doing is we're looking at the world's 2,000 most influential companies, who represent the majority of the world's emissions, control lots of land, collectively employ 600 million people all over the world. So we're interested in those companies because of their footprint. And we want to see how they're using that footprint to change about the things that we're talking about. I think what we've been seeing, we've been going through an age of sort of 10 years of companies making strong commitments towards net zero, nature positive, human rights. And what this sustainability backlash has actually done is kind of shifting between the companies that were in there for real and the ones that were never really on board with it in the first place. And it also means that we have to now measure, to your point, impact in a slightly different way. And we have to actually see where companies are putting their capital. So if you're looking at the Australian companies, or we're looking at here in Australia, we'll launch a report later today, is that capital expenditures, or what companies actually invest, is now 10% in low carbon investments. That's way too low. It's slightly above the global average, but it's still way too low, because capital expenditure is the lead indicator for where future emissions are going to be. So one of the key things that we now have to do is make sure that those capital expenditures of companies are going up. We've done a little bit of modeling, because in every market, in every industry, wherever under current technological and market conditions, you see companies that reach 30%. Right? So there's a huge opportunity to get more investment flowing into climate. I think the other side, which is still not really taken on board by companies, but was widely reflected here on the panel this morning, is the other side of climate, which is nature and people. And what we're seeing a big lag, but hopefully a pickup, is the acknowledgement of companies that that is not just a net zero target. It is actually a target about justice, and it's a target about being nature positive. So the way that we're evolving, the way that we measure companies, is much more through the lens of an integrated transition. So how are companies going to get to net zero, nature positive, and deliver justice both for their own employees as well as the communities in which they operate? And I think that the way that we're going to get there is the only way that we're going to get there is we need to make the impact that you talked about consequential to their success. Because the moment that link breaks, which we're now, for example, seeing in the automotive industry, that had a huge bet on EVs, and the moment when policy breaks, you see sort of that pullback coming in. So the real focus is how do we keep companies accountable by making it consequential to their success. And I think the luck of Australia in that sense is your proximity to Asia, where there's such dynamic and such energy that I think will do a lot of driving the change here in Australia.
And I guess just to extend that a bit further, public confidence is undermined when you see sort of greenwashing and kind of performative climate commitments. So how can we protect against that greenwashing, ensuring that businesses are doing what they say they're doing?
So what we're doing is actually measuring this and putting this data in the public domain. A lot of this data is already available to the investment community, but what's really important is everyone, regardless whether you're an investor, an NGO, a student, you work for the government, you have access to this data. Because the only way that we're going to create corporate accountability is by doing it as a collective effort. And that means that this data and this information needs to be in the hands of everyone. So that you, because it was mentioned earlier in the panel, so that you understand where your pension is going to, where your insurance premiums are going to, where you're buying from, where you choose to work in if you're a student and you're looking for a job. And so making that a collective effort and making sure that that data is in the hands of everyone is the one thing that we can do against greenwashing. The other problem that we have to deal with is green hushing. Increasingly, companies being scared to talk about this, not finding the confidence, not finding the narrative, which is equally dangerous as greenwashing.
Yeah. Mary, can I ask, we've just been talking about impact. There are a few places on the planet that will experience the impact of our changing climate more than in the Pacific. What responsibility do you think Australia has to its Pacific neighbours? And what does a genuine partnership look like?
Thank you. What is climate change to the grassroots? Or what does climate change mean when we talk about climate change in the grassroots? In 2015, we have a very strong Category 5 cyclone that strikes Vanuatu. And my island was hit the most. I received an emergency call that my house has been taken by this cyclone. I went down, I flew down to the island to see my house. When I stood near my house, the environment changed. The sea turned to brown, and the environment turned to brown color. There is no more green, no more blue sea. This is where we start talking about climate change. This is where the climate change become our discussion in the community with the grassroots. I am here today on behalf of the women. Since 2015 till today, we are still advocating to see the change in the community. There are many things related to this climate change effect in our communities. But I want to say that in building partnership, as I am here, I'm looking for that partnership that will strengthen the capacity of women in the community. Sorry, my English is not good, but I want to say that connecting with a global network will strengthen the healthy movement in the community, or the women in Vanuatu could live a happy environment. We'll see and live a happy environment. It has been a long time. It has already been 10 years we have been talking about these changes in the community. Still today, we have no running water. We have no lights. Many things I can say more. The communication is our major problem. And this is where I am here today, to speak with us all, to seek support from you all. And I believe that building this together, we can make a change in the lives of the women in Vanuatu. Thank you.
Matt. Mary, I mean, you're more powerful, your story is more powerful than any of us on this panel, and I know you're very nervous coming up here, but thank you, because your story really grounds the economics here. I mean, the transition only wins if it improves lives and resilience, really. Like if it really, if the money, if the capital that we all talk about truly reaches the lives and enriches the lives of communities and doesn't just hit spreadsheets. So I think to further the answer to your question, Matt, I think the role of Australia must be about leading on behalf of its region and leading a mission into COP that is not just about decarbonisation and energy markets and all of the others, but it's about the people in our part of the world that are going to be most affected. And within that group, the women. And I know that you have a great workshop at 2 o'clock this afternoon, a plug to the workshop at 2 o'clock this afternoon to seek the input of everybody in this room. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Mary, thank you for sharing your story. It is so important for us to hear the real world impacts that are occurring because of our heating planet on communities like yours. Is there a message you'd like to deliver here to people about what we as Australia can do to support the people of Vanuatu and people more broadly in the Pacific?
Thank you. I am the founder of Mutngar Women and Girls Association. It's an independent movement, and our goal is to set up the sister circle from the southern part of Vanuatu to the northern part of Vanuatu. The sister circles will reach there because in these sister circles, we have the opportunity to sit in circle and talk about different solutions that could help us to be independent or to be resilient. It has been a long time for this advocacy work, and I am here to pass this message on. I am carrying the voices of these women behind me, more than 600 women behind me. And just before I left to come to Australia, there was a heavy rain, and one of my friends came up to the house. She comes very far in the inner land, and she said, "Oh, my sister, my house is full of water. I cannot sleep because the house is leaking." We have the house built of coconut leaves, right? And when the cyclone comes, it is easy to go with the cyclone. And now the coconuts are no more there. The trees are no more there. It's slowly planting back. It is hard to find a good shelter for the woman. I am here to call on all of us if we can move together and find these voices to support them where they are living so they can have a better life or live happily in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And maybe to set up the next question to you, David, we're heading to COP31. Australia has an important leadership role to play there. You've just heard Mary talk about the impact on her community and vulnerable people in her community. What must Australia do between now and COP31 to be seen as a credible climate leader?
I think have Mary give the keynote address. Mary, thank you. Amazing, amazing. And I'm a father of 2 daughters. We were speaking before this morning about what you're doing. I think organizing women is an incredibly bold and important and necessary step. So we wish you luck, and we're rooting for you. Thank you for everything you're doing. It's inspiring. Look, I think COP, this is an amazing story. You know, just the stats we just heard from the minister who was speaking right before. I mean, that is incredible that it took basically 8 years to get your first 6 gigawatt hours of energy storage and then 6 months to get the next. There's no precedent in history, in the entire energy industry, for what's happening now, which is the rate of growth for solutions is so fast. And so it actually is possible to make a transition quickly and affordably. And I would highlight what's going on right now is that fossil fuel prices across the world are spiking because of this war. So we can do a lot to advance on climate solutions and to insulate consumers from high prices. And I think that message that this is good for the planet and it's good for the pocketbook, we have to get that out far and wide. And you have a great story to tell, because this transition that's happening now is so fast and so successful. I think it's actually the perfect place. So congratulations on landing that, and I hope that message gets told to the whole world.
Kate, you're another American friend. As an outsider looking at Australia, what role do you want us to play as we head towards COP31 in the absence of American leadership?
I think that a lot of what we do comes down to psychology. You know, we fight for what we love. We want to belong to the team that is getting it right. And I would say the opportunity that Australia has is to tell the stories about how you are fighting for what you love and really positioning yourself as the team that's playing the way all of us want to play, and create that, essentially to light the path. That's something we talk a lot about at 1% for the Planet is, and this has come up earlier, we know what to do. The problem that we're facing right now isn't the lack of solutions or the lack of knowledge of those solutions. It's the lack of will sometimes, the lack of motivation sometimes, the lack of sort of believing that we can do it. And I think Australia, you have all of that. And so I think really just centering that will be such an important way of lighting the path.
Yeah, great. Megan, you're an insider. You're an Australian. So what do you want to see our country doing in the lead up to COP31?
I want to see our country and our government prioritising actions that it can lead, not just announce. And I think that's the challenge over the next couple of months. That includes integrity-based markets, investable pipelines, and credible cross-sectoral delivery. I mean, we've got extraordinary examples of industry excellence happening here, but we need to get it happening across sectors. We need full value chains participating in decarbonisation and nature-positive outcomes. And within all of that, we need Australia to take, embrace the opportunity for regional leadership.
Amazing. Maybe if I could open up for everyone, and Gerbrand, I'll get you to kick off, but just to wrap things up here, what action must Australia prioritise over the next 2 years? What are some tangible things that you think would move the dial internationally if Australia were to take up?
I think if we look at Australia and the influence of its corporations, you've taken a few tremendous steps forward when it comes on the sort of climate reporting on that. I think if Australia could make similar progress over the next 2 years by aligning that as well for nature and people, and bringing to COP the message that a lot of this transition that we need to make as a world is going to depend, one, on companies, because of their enormous footprint and influence, and, as in the words of Mary Robertson, that this is not just an emission from exhaust pipe problem. This is really an integrated planetary issue that we need to deal with, and I think that Australia, which is both its richness in cultures as well as richness in biodiversity, has got a unique story to tell. It's not a perfect story. It's perhaps not even a story of leadership, but it is a story about how you're trying to reconcile those things. And I think if that's the message and the experience that Australia could bring to the COP, I think that would be phenomenal for the rest of the world.
Yeah, great. And can I maybe, just before we go back to that question, David, Kate, from a US perspective, how do we get from opportunity to inevitability, notwithstanding the ups and downs of the political cycles? How do we make sure that climate action becomes unstoppable?
Well, I think it's really important to just shine a light on the fundamental economics, which are, we are going to win on clean energy, all right? This year in China, 60% of the vehicles sold are electric. Okay, it's the largest auto market in the world. The cheapest resources in the electricity market are solar and wind. Great statistic on solar. Danny and I worked, in solar together for 25 years. In 2004, it took a year to build a gigawatt of solar. In 2010, it took a month globally to build a gigawatt of solar. In 2016, it took a week. In 2023, it took a day. In 2024, half a day. And now solar is the single biggest investment on the global electric grid annually. It's in excess of $500 billion, and we're just getting started, okay? The prices are still coming down. Panels are still getting bigger. We're going to win, but we want to win fast. And so I think we have to push back against a tidal wave of sort of hostile messaging coming at us. You know, I just got this statistic a few weeks ago. In the United States, the fossil fuel industry budget for communications and public affairs is $4 billion a year. The entire renewable energy industry is $150 million. Okay, we're getting outspent like 27-1. And so we have a lot of work just to get the message out about the basic facts. But if I could just close with one hopeful story, because I think we need to lead with hopeful story. We have had one of our biggest tribes in California, the Yurok tribe, just had an incredible win. It was the largest dam removal project in the world. We took down 4 dams, and the salmon run has been restored after 50 years with these dams up. And at the same time, the condor, which is the largest bird in California, 9.5-foot wingspan, majestic bird. It lives to 75 years old, and this had been extinct in that region, the north part of California, for 100 years because of lead bullets. So we've now banned lead bullets. They incubated back these condor. They've reintroduced them a few years ago. There's now 26 condor, and just this week, for the first time in a century, in this region, 2 of the condor have now mated, and they're incubating an egg. Right? First time in a century. And for the Yurok people, the condor, because it's the highest flying bird in the region, it is thought to confer wisdom and perspective to the people, and then in turn to be the medium for humanity's hopes to rise to the heavens. And so you can imagine the absence of this bird for 100 years now coming back. And so I draw a lot of hope from that. And I think it is possible if we lean in to actually restore the balance of nature.
So many baby announcements on the
stage. Yeah, exactly. A lot of, there you go. Yeah.
That's a great story. And I'll just say briefly, I think it was Dr. Atkinson who was mentioning thinking in systems. And I think we really need to think and act in systems to get to that tipping point of inevitability, because I think each of us have a place in the ecosystem. Either we're showing up as individuals, choosing how to use our purchasing dollars, as businesses who get to make the choice about how we invest our capital, as humans who care about places, welcoming new life into the world. So many different points in the ecosystem, and I think the key is that we shift from thinking changing the capitalist ecosystem to be positive for planet and people is optional and something that has trade-offs. It's the only way that we are going to have a future that any of us can live in. And so I think really shifting into that systems thinking mindset and creating the examples and stories of how that works and how we can then really align business outcomes with planet outcomes with people outcomes.
Yeah, great. Megan, opportunity to inevitability. How do we embed this no matter what the politics of the day are, and we keep the momentum up?
Well, we need to raise the voices of more Dr. Atkinsons. I mean, she was extraordinary this morning, if she's still in the audience. Just amazing. And there she is. We have more people like her talking to rooms like this, and there's an absolute inevitability in the opportunity for Australia. I do think if we're thinking about a 2-year time frame, I agree the clean energy transition is inevitable. The nature repair transition needs to be inevitable as well. And Australia missed the boat on the role that it could play globally for clean energy. And it has the opportunity right in front of it right now for nature repair and nature markets globally. We have all the natural assets. We have extraordinary capability in this country, and we have some amazing emerging technologies that are destined for global domination. And we want to nurture and build them here in this country for the benefit of our region and for the benefit of the world.
I think it's appropriate that Mary, you have the last word on this panel.
Thank you.
leave us with a message here today about what you want from those in this room and what you want from us as a nation here in Australia, as a friend and a partner of you in the Pacific.
As a neighbour country, Vanuatu is the neighbour country of Australia. I just want Australia to listen to our voices. I want Australia to listen to us, and we continue this dialogue so that you will understand more how we live and what we are asking for. We're just asking you to listen to us, Australia, and support us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary. We've heard your message loud and clear today, and I think that's a message of if we don't tackle this, then the consequences are very real, and they're dire for people living in the Pacific, particularly vulnerable people. They're going to have huge impacts on our own nation here in Australia. We've seen that with floods, fires, droughts occurring with increasing intensity and frequency. We need to reduce our emissions as far and as fast as possible. Everyone needs to lean in. It's not just up to government, but private enterprise, private capital need to do their role also. So I want to leave with a message of hope. Yes, the threats are real and dire, and they're going to have a devastating impact on our country, but there's still time to do something about it. And right now, we've bent the curve. So not long ago, the world was on track. Pre-Paris, the world was on track to heat by more than 5 degrees. We have bent the curve. We're on track to heat by 2.8 degrees. It's still too much, but it shows that collective action does make a difference. So notwithstanding what's happening in America or other areas that are looking to backslide on climate action, momentum continues at the subnational level and through people of goodwill like that are here today. And we need to keep going because there's nothing less at stake than the future of our planet, and there's nothing less at stake than the future prosperity of a nation like Australia. So let's rise to the challenge. Let's grab it with both hands. And on that note, can you please thank Gerbrand, Mary, Megan, Kate and David and all of you here today. Thank you very much for what you continue to do.